Good morning! Hey, all you beautiful, amazing folks out there. So I just wanted to share a quick story with you this morning. As you get your day started, maybe just to give your heart a little bit of encouragement for your everyday life. So I heard a story recently of a guy who had a friend who was an absolutely world-class race car driver. Possibly the best in the world. And man, this guy was going to go and jump in this race car, and he thought his only thing he was going to do was ride around a couple of laps in the race car. So, of course, he jumps in and boom, they take off, and they are going extremely fast. The guy's heart's just boom, 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 racing out of his chest. As they make each lap, boom, boom, he thinks to himself, man, this guy is talented. So they get to the end of the track, and the guy says, okay, now your turn. And he looks at him and he's like, what are you talking about? I can't drive like that. And he said, well, of course, it's not going to just be learned overnight, but I'm going to teach you a few things about driving a race car. So they swap seats, and the guy who is a complete novice and has only drove a regular car, he's not actually ever driven a race car, jumps into the driver's seat. And dumbfoundedly, he kind of looks over at the guy and he's like, okay, now what? He said, well, I've got 4 buttons on this side of my car, and at any time I'm going to press one of them, and it's going to cause one wheel to come up off of the ground, and we're going to go to an out of control spin. And he looks at him like, why in the heck would we want to do that? And he tells him, you know what? Anyone can drive a race car, but pulling out of a spin is where the talent really lays in a real strong race car driver. And of course, his heart starts to race even harder, and he's thinking, well, that's the last thing I want to do is spin out of control. And he tells him, I'm going to tell you exactly how to pull out of a spin. You see that wall right there? If we hit that wall going 120 miles an hour, there's a good chance you're going to be very hurt. If not, lose your life. And well, I don't want to die, and I know you don't either. So we are going to stay on the track and not hit the wall. And of course, he looks at him again like, well, how are we going to do that? He said, the secret lies in not looking at the wall. The secret lies in turning in the direction that you want to go. He's sitting there and he's thinking to himself, well, why in the heck would I not look at the wall? I've got to know what I'm avoiding. And it hits him. Have you ever heard where there's this old country road and there's only a telephone pole every quarter of a mile, and a guy's zoom going down an old country road and just happens to hit one of the only poles on the country road? It's because the very first thing they do is look in the direction that they don't want to go, and subconsciously you go in that direction. So boom, they take off, and the guy's ready, man. He is absolutely ready. Push the button, I'm ready. And of course, life never pushes the button when we're ready, does it? It's always when we're not ready, when we're completely off guard and not prepared, right? So the guy's got confidence. Vroom, vroom, vroom. And just about the time he loses just a tad bit of confidence, boom, the guy presses the button and the car begins to spin out of control, and the very first thing he does is looks right at the pole, and the guy grabs his face and shoves it in the opposite direction in the way that he wants to go, and he pulls against him and he pulls against him, and he continues to shove his face in the way he wants to go, and at the last minute the tires catch and they pull out of the spin. Vroom, vroom, they get to the end. He says, okay, buddy, did you learn anything? And of course the guy says, yeah, I learned. Of course he didn't learn anything, because the very next time they take off, they get into a spin, the very first thing the guy does is look in the direction he wants to go, and the guy does it again. He shoves his face in the way he wants to go, and over and over and over, as they make these laps, vroom, 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 each time it gets better and better. Why? Because he looks in the direction that he wants to go versus the way he doesn't. How often in our lives does some catastrophe or tragedy or crazy insanity show up in our life, and that's all we can focus on? And it begins to tear at us and eat away at us, and pretty soon we are completely consumed with it. Why? Because the catastrophe, the tragic situation, and the insanity has gotten our focus. It is inevitable. What we focus on, we will move in that direction. I'm encouraging you today to pull out of the spin by looking in the direction you want to go. It is the secret to life. I love you so much. Have an absolutely extraordinary day. Word.